Hello, everyone. I'm Tommy Lahren along with Griff Jenkins, Lisa Booth, and Charlie Hurd, and welcome to the Big Sunday Show. And the big story tonight, are China spy balloon concerns confirmed? Secretary of State Antony Blinken making his rounds on the Sunday shows today to brag about his meeting with a top China diplomat, revealed that a spy balloon that we finally shot down after flying over the U.S. for days was doing just that, spying.
Once the balloon was over the United States and flying basically west to east, it attempted to surveil very sensitive military sites. In some cases, it loitered or returned to them as it progressed east. So there is no doubt in our minds at all that A, this was a surveillance balloon, and B, it was attempting to engage in active surveillance.
As for that meeting with the China diplomat, Blinken says it was a direct conversation about the China spy balloon. But there's one thing Blinken didn't get from China, an apology.
I can tell you, no, there was no apology. And I told him quite simply that that was unacceptable.
Oh, but the rest of the Biden administration seemed to love his unacceptable message.
Believe me, the message was clearly sent to China that this is unacceptable. Secretary Blinken was able to deliver that strong message in Munich.
What Secretary Blinken said to the Chinese, and it was very clear that what the Chinese did with these balloons was totally unacceptable.
Oh, I'm sure China is just shaking in their boots. But, you know, I appreciated the audible laughter from you, Charlie, during that entire introduction. So I know that you've got some strong feelings on this. Again, making the rounds on the Sunday shows to say, hey, listen, we know it was a spy balloon. Yeah, we knew that days ago. And China also, they're not apologizing for it. Does that really show strength? And is that really something to brag about on all the Sunday shows? I'm not sure, but I wonder what you think.
No, I think I'm laughing on behalf of China because all of China is laughing at us right now. And I love the word loitered. How funny is that it loitered? But I think the more serious part of the word loitered also suggests that this balloon had some kind of propulsion device if it was loitering over these very sensitive military sites, suggesting that it's probably it was a whole lot more important to China than their claims that, oh, it was just a weather balloon that went astray. But whatever, they gave it complete safe passage all the way across the country to surveil all China wanted, and then shot it down after the fact.
It did really seem like an odd flex to go in and then admit that,
Exactly.
it was loitering over our country for days. They knew about it. But Lisa, I want to ask you this, because now he finally meets with a China diplomat. We know that before the whole balloon debacle blew up in the news because of the Billings Gazette had to uncover it, we know that they wanted to go over and meet with China, then they had to delay it a little bit. But now I wonder, this meeting, do we think that the United States got absolutely anything at all out of it?
No, I mean, they probably got laughed at. And that's the problem. Look, we're in the Mad Max era of foreign policy. We have no leadership, so bad actors are taking advantage of that. Putin invades Ukraine, China's eyeing Taiwan, and meanwhile, they're going closer together. I mean, Blinken was talking about his concerns about how Beijing is funding, weapons aid to Russia. We know that they've grown closer economically as well. But I think my biggest concern is, are we going to get into a full-scale war with Russia? I mean, there were these reports that we sabotaged the Nord Stream pipelines, not Russia. Some of that makes sense. So will they respond? Have they? And then where does that leave China in all of it?
Do you think that there's any amount of them using the ongoing coverage of this spy balloon to distract from other things that maybe they don't want to talk about, like that Nord Stream pipeline, like the 3 other unidentified objects, like Ohio, like inflation, baby formula shortage? I mean, it feels like there's a lot here that they would rather talk about this balloon.
I'll tell you a story. So my little brother, when he didn't want to eat his vegetables, he would be like, Mommy, look at the trees, because it was a distraction. I feel like these balloons are that distraction, right? They're saying, don't look at all these things. Don't look at America falling apart, as you just laid out. Don't look at the fact that we might be, trying to encourage a full-scale war in Russia. Look at these shiny objects. Look at these balloons. Look at the Hoppy balloon, $12. We apparently shot it down.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, because we are still talking about these objects that we don't know what they are.
Yeah, it's
but,
working.
let's take a listen, and I hope the American people feel comforted by this transparency.
These missiles used to take out these balloons are over $400,000 each. One of them, apparently we used 2, and the balloon was only maybe worth $12. What do you tell the American people about our ability, our radar, our defenses to differentiate between real threats? Because we can't spend that kind of taxpayer money taking down hobby balloons.
Well, we don't know exactly what these balloons were, and then we've called off now the search in Lake Huron and the one over Alaska, so we may never know completely.
Okay, I got it. I got the message. We're not going to know. We don't know where it is. But can I go back to, like, look at just the diplomacy in action. We marched out every one of the State Department, Blinken, Greenfield, to all say we sent a message that this was unacceptable. The Chinese guy, Wang Yi, called the shooting down of the balloon absurd and hysterical. Then he went on to say that China deplores it and protests it. Their language is stronger. If you want to send a message, you do what Kevin Kline did to John Cleese in A Fish Called Wanda when he didn't want to be called dumb, hung him over the roof upside down by his ankles, and then you got a full apology, full-throated. Like, there was no message. What consequences are we now saying is going to happen? I mean, it wasn't a strong, speak softly, carry a big stick stuff here.
Well, we've had many years of red lines being crossed, and we've got this administration, obviously the weakest of my lifetime. But beyond just that discussion and beyond just we don't know what these objects are, last weekend, Senator Chuck Schumer told us that it was actually China that was humiliated. Do you think that the administration, Griff, is going to be able to get away with this with the American people running with this narrative that somehow China has been humiliated and Joe Biden is tough on China?
I don't read the Chinese press, or am I privy to how they're spinning it, but I think this is certainly being celebrated in China because we reacted immensely, and we're now shooting everything down that floats, and we don't even know what it is. And, we talked yesterday a little bit about whether or not this was a test ahead of Blinken's trip to China. We don't even know if that's back on. He hasn't said whether or not he's going to go to Beijing or not. I mean, they are wanting to see how we will react, and I'm not so sure that absurd and hysterical is too far off the mark. We should have, if we would have sent a message and shot it down before it even got across our continental United States, but you had Kirby saying that it did indeed float across. They know it's a surveillance because it was doubling back on certain sites, like our most sensitive military installations.
But it's also like the rhetoric and the actions aren't adding up, right? He's like, I told China it was unacceptable, but then we let it fly around for a week. Right. We let it fly around nuclear silos and Air Force bases collecting God knows what intelligence. So like the saying, oh, we're standing up, but then you didn't. And that's what matters. That's what they're saying.
Well, and Charlie, I want to ask you about this as well, because there's a whole other side of this thing, talking about China and Russia. All of our foes have gotten stronger. But is there a possibility, a likelihood in your mind, watching this all play out, that China and Russia are going to somehow join forces and cause a real problem for the United States, the world? And then how much more money are we going to have to send over to Ukraine to right the wrongs?
Oh, I think without a doubt that alliance has already been hatched and has grown a lot stronger since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. China is clearly propping up Russia's oil market, their gas markets, and they are they're natural, mainly they're natural allies because they have a common enemy. The problem for us, and this is where we're fundamentally unserious when it comes to shooting down weather balloons, hobby balloons with $500,000 Sidewinder missiles, is the fact that our primary foe in this world is China, and it's not hobbyist weather balloons, and quite frankly, it's also not all of these visions that particularly Democrats over the past 6 years have seen out of Russia. Russia's not our geopolitical foe on the world stage today. It's China, and these people are completely unserious about standing up to them. And say what you want to about Donald Trump, China, as well as Vladimir Putin, they were terrified of Donald Trump because they didn't know what he was thinking. And there's a reason that once Trump is out of the way, you start seeing all of these really weird things starting to happen.
So just to confirm, the Hobby Lobby Club, the Balloon Club, is not their biggest threat?
That's not. I think that's somewhere. Okay. But I think that's
climate change is our biggest threat. And racist construction sites, we know this. We don't have long, but I want to ask you this.
Little hobby club.
Joe Biden was asked by reporters if he was compromised by China, if that had anything to do with his lack of interest in getting to the bottom of all of this. And he said, quote, "Give me a break." What do you think? is going to be his message moving forward and completely brushing everything about the laptop and the big guy under the rug? Is that going to be sustainable for him?
Well, tell me, it does raise questions. I mean, what motivates this man? You look at sending in endless amounts of cash to Ukraine, a country where his family has made money off of with Burisma. What's the motivation for that? Where's the money going? We're not tracking it. We have no idea how that money is being spent, or even with China as well. We know his family is also profited off of relations with China. So it's a great question. What are his motivations on foreign policy?
They love to talk about it's worse than Watergate. Well, this would be a good place to start. Looking into those questions.
Listen here, Charlie, give me a break, as our president would say in full transparency.
Or dog face pony liar.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.